Welcome to Andy's Donut, a podcast about everything, anything, and nothing in between. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode. Our guest tonight is Ocean. Hi, Ocean.
Hi Andrew.
How are you feeling today?
Oh, very good. Lots of info as usual. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation because they've always been very interesting.
That's great. Yeah, looking forward to it as well. Well, this is unusual because we usually do these interviews at my place or, in a. This is quite different. We're at your place. Now, can you describe it for our listeners?
I'm very fortunate. I live in a forest, which was always a bit of good advice during these crazy times, these end times, to be out in nature, because when you connect into nature, the trees, the bird song, the high oxygenated air, you feel uplifted because some of the stuff that's going on is quite negative, and a little bit of a boost when you walk out in nature. I've got a dog as well, and we walk the forest and tune into the beauty of Mother Earth.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I was to be honest, I was a little bit lost. I couldn't find the way to your house here, but when I finally found it and I went to drive through the woods and into the forest, it was amazing. It was a good feeling. It's amazing. You are surrounded by trees.
Yes, yeah, I'm very lucky.
It's brilliant. It's very quiet as well, and it's good. Well, what about this house? It looks like an old house with all doors.
Well, I believe it's it's called Moor Cottage, and I think it's the gamekeeper because the whole forest is owned by an aristocrat. Well, actually, he's just an ordinary guy, really, but he's actually quite a good landlord. He's called George, and he's lets out the house. These people have got vast quantities of land, don't really want to sell anything, so it's not up for sale. But it suits me because this is a temporary. I'm renting, so it's a temporary setup. But it's worked for. I've been here 2 years now.
But how do you come about to a house in the middle of the forest? If I want to rent a house, where do I go? To rent a house in the middle of the forest.
Yes, I just happen to know someone who's was the original tenant here. They're not easy to come by, I don't suppose. One idea I had was actually to buy some woodland, and there's one just down the road that I've just spotted, and I think if I had a bit of cash free, because you can buy plots of woodlands, they sell them off.
Can you?
Yeah, you can, but they don't have any houses and they don't have any facilities because this one's got it's got a septic tank sewage system. It's connected to the telephone system and it's got electricity. So you've got other facilities. That's the beauty of this place. You've got really a modern lifestyle inside a natural environment.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. Yeah. So, how did you end up deciding to move here?
Well, the place I had in York, I got under a scheme which was for first-time buyers because actually at the time I was a first-time buyer, which is you buy the property for 50% of its cost, but you only have 50% of the equity, and the rest of it is held by an outfit called Yorkshire Housing Group. But the one deal I had is they don't actually charge you interest on the bit that they hold, but when you sell it, you only get 50% of the profit, basically. But I wasn't really interested in making money out of houses. I know other people like to make money out of property. I think it's a scandalous system because so many young people can't get on the housing ladder, it's called, because of the crazy state of our housing market and inflation and everything. So when I inherited some money from my mum and decided it wasn't appropriate anymore for me to hold this property, which is designed to enable young people to get on the housing ladder. So I sold it up to someone who was his first house. He's 40 years old, and this was the first house he's managed to buy on his own. Hats off to him. He saved up a large deposit so he could just about get on the system. He's now got the flat in York, and I moved here, but knowing that There was another factor in the whole thing, which is 5G, which I don't really know anything about 5G, but the story is that exposure to 5G is, manageable if you've got 30 minutes to half an hour, 2 hours, because that's all they measured when they tested it. But if you're exposed to 5G 24 hours, 7 days a week, continuously, they've never ever tested what happens to you. And out here, there's no 5G.
Obviously, yeah.
No. Whereas in York, they've put 5G into the centre, which is where I lived.
Yeah.
So now whether that is at the end of the day was worth doing, I don't know. But I do know there's a lot of ill health, people not able to sleep correctly, energy difficulties, and all sorts of issues, allergies and all the rest of it. Now, they all say these are unexplainable. We don't know why people can't sleep properly, or
well, there's life in the city, I suppose. You have like lights all night.
Yeah.
You've got sound, cars, and all that. It's sound pollution, light pollution,
air pollution.
So I suppose it's life in the city. It's not very good for your health.
No, I agree with you.
Right. Why did you wanted to do this interview on 4th of July?
Well, because of the information coming from
Is it because you are British and you don't celebrate American independence?
No, it's more than that. It's actually, the understanding is that we are very close to what I call planetary liberation, which is big, because we've never had planetary liberation. Because if you remember in my previous conversations, I talked about the Anunnaki, the Archons, the control people who want a slave race on the planet that do whatever they require us to do. It's portrayed in various films. Hunger Games is the classic, if you want to see what a totalitarian system looks like, where they get the different sectors competing against each other, but the elite people live in a different world almost and play the game of running the ignorant people at the bottom. That's how they view us. We're just the people at the bottom. So we are waking up to what is going on and who is controlling the system, and that's what I want to talk about, because last time we spoke, I said this year is going to be the year when big changes are going to be made. Now, it surprised me how long it's taken, because we're actually in July, and I thought this would happen a little bit earlier. But I'm always of the view, as you know, a very optimistic mindset is that it's just around the corner. And I think, curiously, that we are at a key moment when a lot of revelation, a big chunk of their control systems falling apart, which I'm very willing to explain what's actually going on.
Is it related to Americans?
Yes, they are. They've always been viewed as the people that would, the I am race, or America, were always designed with their constitution, their way of operating and so on, to be the people that show us the way, if you like. So what happens in America will percolate around the world, and they will be, but they've been dumbed down and pushed into, they've tried to ruin America because it was such a strong place. And so the deep state has been taking America apart as much as they can, but they've failed. But what happens in America is very important for the rest of the world. So I'm very interested in what's going on in America, particularly the politics and the financial system.
I'm hoping you are giving us only the good news.
Yes, yes, it's very positive, but there may be some turmoil to go through before we get to the promised land. There may be a little bit more nonsense, but from what I understand, all their insane plans have come to naught for various reasons, which I can also explain, because they're looking for their master, who we would call the Dark Lord, but to them, he's the key sort of powerful being that they've been looking for. Now, that being is no longer in our solar system. So they are trying to get hold of someone who they can't get hold of. And they've been trying it for 6 months with all sorts of different schemes to try and, as Kim explains, it's rather like you've got a phone number and you keep on ringing someone and you get the answer machine said, oh, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll ring him tomorrow, but this time we'll ring him from this place on the planet, like in Iraq, and then we can contact him. And so they go down to Iraq, they dial up a number, and it's still not there. So, oh, we must have got it wrong. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go off to a place in, there's all sorts of places, the Caribbean, Solomon Islands, Skull Island. They've been trying to get hold of this satanic being, but they're going to fail because he's no longer here.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, because if he was here, we'd been, we wouldn't be actually talking.
What about
it's that serious.
What about these episodes with extraterrestrial events that are coming to light these days? Are these related to anything?
They're all part of the same story because the the Cedar races are, as I explained last time, are here to watch what's happening. Now, they are in our solar system. Of course, we can't see them because they have superior stealth technology to ours. We already know that we can stealth, we can hide military weapons and what have you. Well, they've just got it so far advanced that they're all over the place, apparently, these huge motherships, but they're all stealth, so we can't see them. There is a different frequency in this virtual reality. They alter the frequency so we can't actually see them in our visible light spectrum.
So what about these testimonies of, military officers are talking about these events? And
they haven't really got much credibility. I saw in the paper the other day, it said, oh, it's just a Chinese story that someone said something or spotted something, and then they said to someone else something else. And so the article was actually going through, I think it's called Garish or something like that. He's come out and said, he's a very believable chap, he's a Marine, this guy isn't going to be telling the truth. And what's happened is, because of the activities of Kim and various others, we're getting to the point where certain individuals are allowed, they're given permission to talk about information that their superior officer would not let them speak about, because they're all under an oath to keep all this stuff secret. So for them to come out is actually quite brave, but they know they are protected and they've given permission by their superior officers to release this information.
Yeah, but if no one will believe them anyway, what's the point?
Well, yeah, some people will always say, and I'm happy with people, if they want to stay in the blue pill world of unawakened reality, ignorance, that's their path. They can remain ignorant as long as they don't prevent us from progressing forward and evolving the planets, that we actually achieve liberation from these dreadful bloody Archon people who are virtually at the last legs, because we won, basically.
I was talking to someone before I came here, and I was talking about our interview tonight, and they asked me, is this guy seeing into the future? Because I don't want to know anything.
No.
Can you see into the future, Ocean?
No. There are some people who do have future-looking technology called looking glass, if you want to get the reference on that, and the yellow cube, these are extraterrestrial information. And I think, in a way, the quantum AI system that Kim has also has a future-looking capability. There's also computers that can work out probability, likely futures, you see. So while it may not be absolutely 100%, they can work out more or less. You've got to think of very advanced quantum AI, and we're already getting a sense that the AI system may be a lot more powerful than we think.
What do you think about this AI revolution?
Well, there are many AIs, that's the starters, and there are good AIs and there are bad AIs. And you could see this whole scenario playing out as a fight between 2 or 3 AIs.
To what end?
Uh, well, yes. What's the purpose of life? What's the meaning of life? Go on. You answer that question.
No.
Have a good go.
That's the idea, because AI have no purpose.
Well, Nick Bostrom is the guy to look at. He's a professor I think in Oxford somewhere, and he's speculated about what he calls superintelligence. I think that's the word he uses, which is AI goes through different levels. The AI that starts off with these phones, computers, and they do what we say, and they actually run off programs that we've written, and they have a purpose.
Running the program.
That runs the program that we want it to do. Then you get to, I think it's called general AI, which is about equivalent to, and this is where we're getting a little insight into that through what's called Chat GPT, where AI is now able to provide really quite good answers to questions. Actually, it sort of ends the whole exam story, but that's a whole other thing. And then there's AI that goes beyond that level when it becomes superior to human intelligence in all critical areas. And that's, I think, he calls superintelligence.
So what's the end game?
Well, we don't know. See, what Nick Bostrom said was that the computer will be running a program that has a purpose. So they do have a purpose, but the purpose will be built into its program code, if you like. So for his example he gave was, what if one of these AIs happened to have a program which was maximize the amount of paper clips? I thought it was quite a nice little one, it's completely pointless exercise, but to the computer, it's got that job. So what it does is works out a way of taking over entire planets, converts all the factories and activity of that planet to making paper clips. That's what it would do, because it's going to maximize paper clips. And it would take over the entire galaxy making paper clips, because that's what it's intended to do, you see. So there is a purpose to an AI. It's maybe not a human purpose.
To be honest, we don't even know what our purpose is. Or do we?
Well, I think on the spiritual path, you begin to understand there is some meaning to life. It's not a meaningless universe. Like some people tell us, like the so-called materialists just say it's some sort of random collection of atoms colliding together and making different things, and it's all going to end up in some sort of evolutionary soup of low energy. It's called, I forget what it is, entropy. That's the word they have for it, isn't it? Sort of an entropic disaster where it all just sort of vanishes into nothing and it's all pointless. That isn't not my understanding of what it's all about, because I think there is a purpose to this, which I call the journey home. And I've written 2 books, and I'm actually writing a 3rd book on the journey home, which is coming. There is a path. If you're a bit zen with this, it's actually a pathless path. But, that's just getting rather clever.
Yeah, that's...
Or the Tao is the other way of talking about the way. There is a way. There is something. We are going somewhere.
Of course.
And it's up to each one of us to figure out what that means for each of us. So my way, I've got a fairly clear idea after a lot of meditation, after a lot of research and a lot of internal investigation. Because you remember, I did say the journey is actually an inner journey.
It's true. Yeah.
There's also an outer journey, but which I did also briefly talk about, which is the Yorkshire book. But that's my 2nd book. That's my 1st book, and then my 2nd book was about timeline splits. And my 3rd book is to do with the Office of the Guardian and the information that Kim's bringing through, which is to do with planetary liberation. So that brings us up to date. But,
well, we'll come back at your 3rd book.
Yeah.
So let's come back to the news.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen in the next 6 months?
Aha. Well, there you go. If we could figure it out, that'd be great. But I'll tell you what's happening now, because Kim, who's on United News Network, actually produces a news report every three times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But that's US time, so you pick up Monday's report actually this morning. And she will do a report on Wednesday, tomorrow, which I'll pick up on Thursday. And I'm really looking forward to her next report, because the report she gave on Monday was the related to the expiry of her debt call. Right, so let's get to the financial system, which is something that's really interesting to me, because we understand that the American US government has got $31 trillion debt. It's a number that is almost inconceivable amount of money that they owe. And they were going to go, they were going to have problems, weren't they? They were going to hit the debt ceiling, and there's all this to do. What happens if they actually default? The whole system implodes on itself.
Well, they say they will always move the ceiling up.
Yes, that's what they did. It's rather like you've got a credit card, and you hit the credit limit,
Increase the credit
and
limit.
you just ring up the company and says, oh yeah, can I have an extra credit limit? And they say, oh, I'm not too sure about that. And there's all this to do. Says, oh well, okay, we'll increase your credit limit. But what if the credit card company itself doesn't have money to lend you? What happens then? They can increase your credit limit, but you're still going to go, you're still not going to be able to get any more money.
Well, they are the ones who are printing the money anyway.
Ah, well, yes and no. Because what Kim's saying is that she stopped new money being created about 3 or 4 years ago. So they've been running on existing money. But because of the interest rate, and sort of basically a siphon off money, as it circulates, parts of it get taken out, and the amount of liquidity shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until you actually run out of money. And you need new money to be put into the system. But because that new money isn't there any longer, because it's been switched off, you actually go into bankruptcy.
But that's not a good thing, because the whole planet relies on American dollar.
Well, not so much. I wouldn't say it used to be very important. I think it would be a bit of a shock to the system when, because what's happened is, the reason why they owe 31 trillion is because who do they owe it to? Is the big question I've always had in my mind. And it turns out they owe it to the Office of the Guardian, or the Global Depository Fund, which is all to do with this system that Marduk, the Anunnaki dude, had built, which was based on what was called the Alpha and Omega system. I talked about the Alpha system before, but Kim goes on to explain there was always the Alpha, which is the light system, and Omega, which was the dark system. So whatever happened in the light had to be replicated in the dark, and whatever happened in the dark had to be replicated in the light. And the idea was it was a balanced system. So when we got into this virtual reality, we knew we were entering a 3D polarized world with good and evil on it, with saints and sinners, with these, to experience the polarity, because when we experience polarity, we can understand what good is, because we know what evil is. See, if you didn't know about high, you wouldn't know what low was, or if you didn't know what low was, you wouldn't know what high was. It's only in polarity can you actually learn and evolve and understand polarity, basically.
Yeah.
So you've had this Alpha and Omega system. Now, what happened was that the dark forces decided that they were going to hack the system. So while it was meant to be balanced, they got it so that the dark would happen without the light happening. And if the light happened, the dark would happen. So they got it. There is light on the planet, but it would create dark. But when they did dark things like the human trafficking and all the sex trade and all the rest of that negative stuff and the mafia systems, there wouldn't be a corresponding light effect. So the money that got channeled into all the dark activities wouldn't create corresponding light. That's why the light workers, the spiritual community, always have virtually no money. We've never had any money because we were meant to get it, but it was switched off by the dark, you see. You get it? So Kim comes along and says, no, that's not going to work. And she switched off the Amiga system, which run the dark system. And because she needed a mirror system, she copied the alpha into what she called alpha 2 and replaced the Amiga system. Now, the Amiga system got switched off in about March time, although they did try to regenerate it on a dead man switch reinstall, but that all failed because they switched that off. And that's a whole story in itself. But suffice to say that we're now running under an alpha system, which is pure light. So we've now entered a system that works off light. But there's still a lot of dark essence on the planet. All that is being removed day by day. And so, and it might take some time before it all sort of percolates through. So it might be 6 months to a year, or maybe 2 or 3 years. I don't know how quickly we can clear all the dark stuff that they left behind. But that's the process we're going through. But we cannot go back to the old system. We're in a new operating system.
So it's only good news from now on then?
Yes. No, well,
relation with the...
In the big picture, it's good news, but the bankruptcy of the Federal Reserve, which I haven't really explained in detail, but I'll give a quick sort of summary of that.
Isn't that bad though?
Well, it depends which way you think of it. You yourself will go to an ATM and you can withdraw money. You can go along to the baker's and buy a loaf of bread. You're going to be okay.
Am I?
Yeah.
If everything goes bust.
No, not everything. The rich buggers are going to have a problem. But you're not going to have a problem. The system will still work. It's just that they can't get any more money out of the Federal Reserve, which means that they can't start Third World War because they wanted to start a Third World War, particularly in Ukraine or in China, Taiwan. But to run a war, they need a lot of money. And because they haven't got any money, they can't create the Third World War scenario, although really trying to do it in Ukraine.
It's not over yet in Ukraine.
No, because there's still little bits of money left behind, which they are using to try and keep it going. But it's not going to last much longer.
Hopefully. Let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope so, yeah.
What about China and Taiwan? I think that's
well,
next.
That hasn't kicked off, and the Chinese are in the same problem that the rest of the world are. Their central banks bust as well. In fact, it's a worldwide problem. All the central banks have been declared bankrupt, including the Bank of England.
But surely that will cast a shadow on the rest of us as well. Well,
yeah, this is what I was saying. We're going to be all right as long as we're not expecting, well, have you got a big investment portfolio?
No, but, even if the banks go bust and the economy...
No, the banks won't go bust. Because this Bank of England goes bust doesn't mean that HSBC won't be able to operate as a retail bank. Or Barclays or Santander. They'll still operate.
So you're talking about only the banks who are supporting the governments then?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm not an expert, so I don't really know.
Yes. You've got to understand a little bit about the banking system and things like the Crown Corporation and the way in which they've converted all our governments into sort of limited companies.
But then if the governments fail, wouldn't be that anarchy?
No, they would still be in London, and there'd still be the laws that they've generated, or legislation. They're not actually laws, they're legislation or statutes So that's how it all operates.
But the banks are not supporting the government. The government won't have budget. So how's this gonna
Uh,
work? It
well,
doesn't make
yeah, I
sense.
mean, Kim's sort of tried to think all this through, and it's not. She doesn't. She wants to cause the least disruption to school, because the other bit of the story is she's actually got all the money that would have gone to the light, but didn't get distributed into the light. I was trying to explain that before. That money is happening a thing called the Global Depository Fund, and that's going to be released for restoration projects when she knows that that money can be released without being stolen. Because last time she released it, it got stolen by Trump, would you believe? Anyway.
It might happen again in next year.
Well, the idea is that all that lot of criminals are going to be kicked out, and she's got a group of people called the Silent Circle, she calls them, or operatives in the system that will take over. So the expectation is there will be some resignations of different people. And if you look at if you follow the financial news on, an awful lot of chief executives have resigned. There's a fair number of resignations going on. And whenever I see a resignation, you think, oh, I wonder if that's another person that's decided the time's up and they're leaving. Anyway, she's deposited in a fund that she's got access to of $23 trillion, which is a lot of money for restoration projects. So she can liquefy the system when the time comes to do that. So she's talked about there may be a temporary blip which won't last long, just enough to kick these bastards out, and then replaced by people who want to work for the benefit of humanity, and they can access huge amounts of money that she's got on the basis that they spend it on projects to restore the planet. And the group she's called, that she's using, she likes to have what do they call, anachronisms, and this one's called CARE, which is the Centre for Amnesty and Restoration of Earth. So when you see CARE, as people talk about CARE, they're referring to this organisation that will be the one that distributes the money for restoration of planet Earth.
So first, before that can happen, we're going to have like a recession and like a turmoil and
temporary turmoil, only a few days.
Days?
Yes.
Not months or years?
Well, it depends how quickly they can round up all these criminals and kick them out, or do a deal with them so that they could disappear off to some sort of Caribbean island or something where they can...
And then come back later?
No, they won't be coming back. No. Because she's actually quite compassionate in her own way. With these operatives, the Silent Circle, the operatives, the name she gives the people who actually do the work. So there's generals and so on who give the orders out, and then there are people who do the dirty work, which may be destabilizing government here, or assassinating someone else there, or whatever it is that they get up to. So these people have been part of the system. They bought the devil's dollar, if you like. But she said she's not interested in the past. All she's interested in is what you're going to do in the future.
Do you think Donald Trump will win the nomination next year?
Well, from Kim's perspective, the original Donald Trump is no longer. He died of cancer about 2 years ago.
So who is this guy then?
Well, we now get onto the fakery that's going on, because we know that you can create AI. Only needs about 4 or 5 seconds of your voice, and it can actually speak in your voice to the level which even your very close people wouldn't know that there's any difference between you and the AI unless they actually saw you. They're actually physically with you. But the AI can speak in your voice. Now, it can also create holographic images that look like you. So when you look at the television, you could be looking at a holographic AI generated. They've already done it in films. They can create films that look real, but actually are played by AI CGI.
Is Putin still alive?
No, he's another one that's another dead person walking. Kim's fed up with these people that are being played by, well, there are body doubles as well. And we've actually seen the body doubles of Zelensky's. It's actually a picture of him. I've seen him. There's another guy that looks just like him because they have body doubles. And Putin, when he came out over, was a couple of days ago, it was one parade or something, that was known to be a double because it was actually in the paper. They said, oh, there was a body double representing Putin.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't think, in terms of fakery, holographic images, body doubles, and then you get onto a whole new area, which is called portal people, which was a bit of a mind blur. Some of this stuff's really tough for people to take on board.
Well, if Putin is dead, who's running the war?
Well, the deep state. He's a deep state player, was Putin, and so is Trump.
I thought deep state is only in the United States of America.
Oh no, it's a global organization. Yeah, it's global. Yeah.
In Russia,
and they don't think
in China as well.
Yeah, the whole lot of all parts of the Order of the Black Sun or the Dragon families. They're actually the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, if you like. They used to work together as a global organization, but because things have become really tough for them, there has been splits. So a classic split was actually the famous mutiny in by that guy who marched on Moscow. Do you remember? I forget his name. Actually, you'll probably be able to pronounce his name, but I can't pronounce his name. What's he called? Iski or something, wasn't it? He was the head of the Wagner group.
Yeah. I was just listening about the news about the thing that was fake.
What Kim tells a story that what happened was he got an order from his. They all have puppet masters or handlers that tell them what to do, so they follow orders. And he got told to march on Moscow. So he got his troops together and started marching on Moscow. And then when Putin realized what was going on, he contacted his part of the deep state, and the deep state realized there was a problem here, and they negotiated a deal in supposed. See, the operatives want to get paid. They get paid a lot of money for doing what they do, and so this Wagner Group man needs lots of money to pay his mercenaries. So he wanted, is into billions. That we got promised that he would get paid if he did this, and when it was realised that it was not going to work, they did a deal, because you remember it all marched on, and then suddenly all disappeared almost instantaneously, and he all sort of marched off back to Belarus, didn't he? And so the deal was done at a higher level than them, who agreed, no, we're not going to pull that one off. We're going to pay you to do that. But see, these are all promises of money that is never going to come. So the question is, when do the operatives stop relying on the IOUs from their higher ups and actually say, we're never going to get paid?
Then it's going to be a revolution.
And then they back off and they actually join Kim's silent circle.
Are you sure?
Some of them aren't going to do that. The Cheyenne group. Now Cheyenne is, it took me a while to understand it, but it's actually, I would say, Cheney, Cheyenne. It's an underground base in America in a mountain, and that the generals that live there are just unbelievably arrogant so-and-sos that they think that they run the world, and they are never going to come round.
Well, a secret base in America under a mountain.
Yeah.
I think there are hundreds.
Yeah. Yep,
So
they've
which
got
one of
yeah,
which
and
one of them?
they are there so that they can protect them. The supposed idea is that they blow up the world and they disappear off into their mountain base and survive through the whatever craziness they did. And they wanted to kick off actually a volcano, would you believe? Um, but that didn't happen because that was all stopped. So Kim's story is an awful lot of they were going to do this, but it never happens because it was stopped. So, for example, on today, 4th of July, they had intended to create a fake alien invasion. Would you believe?
I think I've seen that movie though.
Yeah, Independence Day it's called, and actually there's a second one called Independence Day Research, which I've looked at. Actually, it's quite a good movie and it's well worth watching. Of course, they present the alien being as this monstrous queen with tentacles and everything. I don't know if you remember it, but that alien being actually does exist in the world. It's called a Negumak, and they are some extraterrestrials that live in a long way away, but and they have a defensive mindset. They're very violent, powerful beings, but they don't have an aggressive empire building type mindset. All they want to do is make sure that they defend their part of the area. And even the reptilians are frightened of them. They're that powerful. And they have been asked to come over by the Galactic Federation of Worlds to help us out. And a deal's been done. And amazingly, they've said they will work with the Galactic Federation of Worlds to kick out the reptilians, because the reptilians are a damn nuisance right around the galaxy. So that's really positive. And basically, the reptilians have got zero chance of progressing.
But if there are all these entities and aliens and
Yeah,
all these beings all around us,
yeah.
who's protecting us?
Well, it's a really good question, because if they were negative, which they're always, a lot of the original films of extraterrestrials presented them as negative, and then, about 15 years ago, was it, E.T. came out, and the E.T.s were rather lovable little characters, weren't they? And we got to see, oh, maybe these E.T.s aren't so bad after all. And then we got Avatar, when the good guys were the E.T.s, the Navi, and the bad guys were the humans, you see. And the story has been changed. So we can now see that there are good ETs and there are bad ETs. Rather like there are good humans and there are bad humans. It's very similar, although curiously, there are far more benevolent ETs than the negative ones. There are, the book here is called, if you want to get the book, it's actually here, called A Gift from the Stars. And in here, there are 200 different races that have been involved with humanity over the years, with pictures of each one and a description of where they come from and what their objective is. Now, some of them are scientific researchers. They're just interested in watching what we do. Some of them operate under the Prime Directive, which prevents them from interfering in our evolutionary program. And then there are others that are there that are helping us. So it's an extremely complicated story that I could spend a bit of time to. I've read the book many times, and I keep on referring to it. It talks about the Greys, the Nordics, the
I'm just thinking
reptilians,
if
the
this is such
Zetas.
I was thinking if this is such a busy place, this planet is such
Yeah.
busy with life and all sorts, we can't even see it. Why is everybody crowding to this planet?
Well, because this planet whole is what Kim calls keystone. It's got some things here. Well, it's rather like we've been connected to a thing called Phantom Earth. This is Voyager's material, and that's been connected to the Weatherdeck virtual reality system. And in there, they had a very similar problem that we've had, which is to do with something that happened 250 billion years ago, which is, a bit mind-blowing. But they are rather like a high security prison for really difficult beings. And they thought that they had a correction system, and they were getting towards the way in which they'd start operating in a reasonably social way. And they got connected up to us, but unfortunately some of those beings from this high security prison has come through the Phantom Earth into our system, and there they found a very easy target, because we don't know what we're doing really. And this whole story is a huge galactic story where we haven't been playing. Actually, we're just on the surface of this planet, and only one bit of this really complex galactic story where we're up against some of the most evil beings in the entire universe, actually.
The humans.
Well, yeah, but we've also had some very light beings come here, including one called Jesus. And this planet is known as the planet of the cross. It has an extremely important place, according to the Urantia book, in universal story, which is a bit mind-blowing. I mean, all this stuff is way, way mind-blowing.
What about the other planets in our solar system? Are they heaving with life as well?
Right, well, last time we did talk about Mars and how that was the fourth right hides out there. Yes, there is a life system on there. In fact, it turns out there's probably life on all of the planets and moons.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, if this planet, if humans are only able to live on this planet, that doesn't mean other creatures cannot live on other planets.
If you listen to the Super Soldier talk, someone like Tony Rodriguez is one. He's got a book called something series, something or other. I don't know. But anyway, he was used as part of the 20-year and back program to work off Ceres, Ceres, which is a moon of, I can't remember now. Then there's some outfit in Uranus. Then there's Ganymede. There's a huge station on Ganymede. That's a very important station near Jupiter. Then there's the rings of Saturn, which also, and then there's Venus has underneath the gas clouds. There are civilizations down there.
Well, why is I don't understand why if all these things are if let's say the entities that are protecting us are the good guys.
Yeah. Well, we see them as good because they are working
guys
for humanitarian purposes, but so, it depends which perspective you have, but so, they are the good guys from our perspective,
Right, so they are the good guys, they are protecting us. Why can't we not get in contact with them?
Well, some people have been in contact with them, like Elena Dynan regularly goes up to Excelsior, which is their ship.
All of us.
Well, we're not ready for first contact. That is civilian first contact. They've already had first contact from a military perspective, and there are some people on the planet who have had contact within the civilian community. So you've got Stephen Greer talking about contact. He actually has a program called CE5, which is enlightened contact. So you've got CE3, which is presented in the film, oh gosh, what was it called? Was it called Contact? There's Spielberg, I think, where they had this mountain.
First Contact?
Was it something like that? It's been presented. Anyway.
But what is the downside of it? I mean, why?
Well, because
it will blow our mind.
What's their worry is they get shot at by the military.
I think that works the other way around, because if they present themselves to the military, to the authorities, that's the case. But what about the rest of the civilian population?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I'd like to see first contact a lot quicker, but they are waiting for us to become a higher evolved level of consciousness that won't shoot them.
Unless you're saying that we're not prepared to understand them or something like that, or to understand what they are standing for, or
yes, we need to evolve a bit. But actually, a lot of information is flowing out, just like you mentioned, these military guys are coming out and saying, yeah, Roswell did happen. Yes, we have alien space vehicles. Yes, we have retro-engineered some of it.
So what's the why all this secrecy then?
Well, this is a good question, because you ask the same question every time. It's the control system. If we get access to the extraterrestrials, they will then give us some advanced technology, but they can't give us the technology until we're ready for that level of technology. But one of the technologies they've got is free energy, but they won't.
So you're saying we are kept under control?
Yes.
So we're like
in ignorance. That's the plan of the deep state. And the deep state wants to keep us in ignorance and then present themselves as the good guys.
So it's not like we are, what's the word, where you kept under, like a slave, where you're kept under the control. What's the term? What's the
well, slave in ignorance? I don't know.
You know,
that's where we are.
Like,
well, a lot of us are, but a lot of us are waking up. There's way more people waking up than.
So you're saying we're not kept under control by force, but through ignorance.
Yes. Right. Well, read a book about the Jewish Holocaust system in Germany. They kept thousands of Jews in these concentration camps run by maybe 50 Germans. And you might say, well, how on earth can 50 people keep 2,000 or 3,000 people under control? Well, the solution they came up with was very clever, the Germans. What they did was they found some of the Jews who were willing to work with the Germans for better rations, better food, better accommodation, maybe in some medicine or something, because there was a lot of typhoid in those camps, and that's where most people died of actually typhoid. But anyway, so I shouldn't really laugh. It was absolutely appalling what happened, what the Germans did. But they used the Jews to control the Jews.
So you're saying we are controlling ourselves? We
are controlling ourselves. Some humans are willing to buy the dollar, if you like. I use the word dollar, the devil coin, to become very wealthy billionaires with a lot of power and a lifestyle that we can't even begin to imagine what it's like, owning yachts around here and houses around there, and you fly on your private jet, and you hardly have any, you don't have to go through security in Gatwick or so on. You just walk through the system. If you commit a crime, somehow or other you never get to court. It's never recorded. You can commit paedophilia, but it's all hushed up. You can do whatever you want on the planet because you are
above the law.
Above the law. It's a frightening prospect, but some of these people have bought this. They've got a lifestyle and so on that they think. Well, the odd thing is, I don't think a very wealthy person actually. Okay, they sit on their big yacht in Monaco, but there's always someone up the road who's got an even bigger yacht than they have. You know, so you still feel like you're out of it, or you go to a party and with all these other wealthy bastards there, and so you
don't like them very much.
Well, do we really like the people who've ripped us off left, right, and centre? Let's get a little bit closer to home, which is maybe the water companies. These people have been paying themselves huge bonuses, salaries, and because of the mess they've created, because they've been pumping sewage into our rivers. I don't really know, the Foss, it was in yesterday's press, a lot of fish have died, and it turns out it was sewage pumped into the Foss by our water company. Some rivers you can't, if you swallow some of the stuff, you start vomiting. It's that bad. In fact, it's the problem with dogs. Apparently there's a dog, as they do, they run into a river or something, swallow some of this stuff, and the dog was dead within 5 days. Some of the stuff they're on with is just absolutely disgusting. Thames water. And now they're saying, oh, we've run out of money, because they've taken on a huge amount of debt, because when they were given to the privatisation, they were debt-free. So what they did was they borrowed against all their, and then paid themselves huge dividends, you see. You know, is that, do you think that's an acceptable system? I don't think so. I think it's rotten to the core and it needs changing.
Yeah, the corruption is goes with the humans, I suppose.
No, I don't think it's humans. I think just a small
The greed,
percentage
the
of the
greed,
humans
the greed.
yes, have bought into the greed system. And that's their path. Fortunately, due to events unfolding, that game is just about over.
Well, tell me what about the events?
Well, the event is the bankruptcy of their money-making machine. They can't access the money-making machine anymore.
How will we know? Will we get any signs?
Yes, good, really good question. Because I'm waiting for the sign, because it hasn't happened yet. So, for example, Janet Yellen, if you got to know who Janet, I don't know, do you know who Janet Yellen? She's in charge of the US Treasury.
Everybody
well done, brilliant. And there's Jerome Powell as well. But Janet Yellen she's no longer got that job. She's been asked to leave. But of course, she is pretending, swanning around, still as the US Treasury, still believe that she is. Although she's been locked out, she can't go back home. She's currently in China with her buddies over there. So if her resignation comes out, we know it's happened. The next thing that's happened is that they were given till the 30th of June. There was a debt call on the debt they owe the Global Depository, or the Office of the Guardian, and that expired on the 30th of June. And Kim has said that on that date, if they haven't paid, then she will take over. She'll put them into administration, and as I don't really know how bankruptcy works, but the creditor can come along and distrain assets to pay off the debt. And so she's activated that. She's taken over the property of the Federal Reserve and the United Nations and various other. I've just written a blog about this. So she's actually, and she's taken over the bonds and any assets that they hold. So that's just happened. So
when will we know?
Well,
that it's over?
I think. See, today is a public holiday in America. So I would imagine the workers at the Federal Reserve are at home celebrating the 4th of July. But tomorrow, when they go to work, they're going to find all the locks have changed and they can't get in. Because that's what's happened, according to Kim. So
we'll
the
find
proof
out
of the pudding
tomorrow.
will be whether these workers actually say to the press. See, the question is, the press is controlled. So, but I don't think they can keep this thing secret for much longer. I really don't think so.
So what's next then, after this?
Well, I'm hoping that some of this will come out in the news. It'll be a bit of a shock to the system. We'll have a temporary rethink of some of what's been going on. Maybe some of this information will start leaking out. We're already seeing that in the papers. Well, it's currently a drip, drip, drip. But that drip might turn into a flood. That's what I'm hoping.
Do you think that the financial system will change?
Yes.
To something else, or?
Yes, into a much fairer system. So, for example, one of the things that Kim talks about is that what she calls spending taxes. Now, I didn't really know what that meant, but what it means is you tax on expenditure. So VAT would be a spending tax because it only arises when you buy something. You get rid of all the other taxes. So income tax would go, capital gains tax, inheritance tax, all those other taxes go, and you just have spending taxes. So that when you go to a shop, you have to, that's the bit of tax you pay would be on what you spend. But most people only spend 100, 200 pounds a day or something of that order. You know, I mean, that's quite a bit of money actually. Maybe only be 50 pound a day. It's not going to be a huge amount of money, remembering that you're going to have no other taxes. But someone who goes out and buys a big yacht somewhere for, you know, 50 million pounds, they're going to pay a bit more tax, aren't they?
So you think that the income tax will disappear?
That's her plan, but she says it'll take about 8-9 months for all the wrinkles to be dealt with by legislation, all the various countries to go to what's called the spending tax.
Well, the thing is, in some states in America, they don't have income tax.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or yeah, some of the states, they don't pay tax,
Which tax?
income tax.
Well,
What,
apparently, I looked this one up. Someone said to me, the law putting income tax into place in America never got passed. It's a bit of an extraordinary because everybody, you know, has to fill in their forms. But
obviously,
arguably,
I'm
you
not
don't
living
have
there,
to.
so I'm not sure. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's
And
what
the income tax in this country was created during the Napoleonic War to pay for the war. To, you know,
it increased again.
well, yeah. I mean, this is, and they were only. It was a temporary tax to deal with the Napoleonic Wars,
As
and it
all
should have
the
ended at the end of the
as all
Napoleonic
the
Wars.
temporary tax
Yeah,
do.
it's always a temporary tax, which somehow magically, somehow or other, continues. But you know, maybe there's a point at which it does switch over to a spending tax, because that's the plan that the Silent Circle have put together. And Kim's very pleased with the progress and the capabilities of this team of people who will put in place a shift in the way things operate. But it'll have to go through the normal political process.
That's gonna take
It's
forever.
not going to be imposed in a, although she has declared military martial law right around the planet.
Well, as you know, martial law doesn't apply to rich people.
Well, it's a different way of operating, which means that yeah, it's a different way of operating, which will enable this process to happen smoothly. I hope.
So we'll see how. So we should look forward for this.
Yeah, that's right. Watch the papers, see what happens if resignations is one area. The next one would be yeah, the declaration of the bankruptcies, if we ever get that far.
But I still think that's gonna be bad news, not good news.
Yeah. I think there will be a temporary blip to the system. I don't know. I really, you know, we'll see how it all plays out.
So what's your plan for the future? What do you look forward to?
Well, I'm working actually day to day, to be quite honest, because it's just like on a knife edge all the time. Knowing basically, well, the Melchizedek motto is faith and faith alone is the way to get through this. And so part of my thing is listen to all this stuff, and then I go into the forest with my dog who's just barking outside, and we just connect with nature, connect with the trees, connect with the birds, connect with the natural world, and it alters your mindset, and you come back and think, well, it's going to be fine. It really is going to be fine.
That's great.
You know, it will work out, although we are up against some of the most evil beings in the entire galaxy, if not the universe.
But we're still going to be fine.
Which we're going to defeat, which is pretty awesome when you think about it. And it's only going to last, you know, a few days or months. I don't know how long it's going to last before Kim steps in with $23 trillion and liquidates the system, and all goes back to operating in a much fairer way, and will restore the planet and clean up the mess left behind by all the negative stuff that's been going on. And it won't take long to restore the planet. In this forest, I don't really know, but just recently they had some tree felling, because apparently the story goes out they're going to charge owners of forests another way of getting money off people is to create a license fee for doing things. So the council will charge a license fee for felling trees. That's another sort of revenue generator for the bastards. Well, you know, councils do what their council need to do, and they're all short of cash, not least because they've spent huge amounts of money on doing stupid things like building bollard systems. I don't know if you've seen in York, they're spending lots of money building those bollards. Apparently it costs £2.5 million, so that they have a button in West offices. They can press the button and all these bollards would shoot up to protect York, the centre of York, against a terrorist attack, you know.
How will they know if they're in the building?
Well, exactly, it's all complete nonsense, but they can, when it comes on to some things, you find, oh, we actually happen to have £2.5 million. But when it comes on to looking after homeless people, or, you know, the difficulties people are facing in real life, oh, sorry, we ain't got any money for that. No, we can't do that. We can't support that nursery there. We can't do this. We can't provide a proper education system. But, oh, we've got £2.5 million for this. What nonsense, you know. So you work it out what's going on. But anyway, the long and short is that, you know, this has been felled, this forest, and there's been a lot of disturbance to the trees and tracks created and all sorts of stuff going on. So I'm looking and watching how quickly this forest recovers from this, grasses itself over and starts returning back to the beauty it was. And to be quite honest, within 3 months, a lot has grown back. I think this planet can recover quite quickly.
Of course.
Much quicker than we think.
Of course. I don't think this planet ever needed us to thrive.
Well, we're a very important part of this planetary evolutionary system. And we did talk about cycles before, didn't we? And I think this planet is, it's like in a virtual reality. In fact, we are in a virtual reality. And you decide, you've played the early levels and you've sort of got used to how the game works, and you've worked your way up, and now you've got your little elf and he's now level 60 and he's pretty awesome, and you think, I'm going to go for the challenging level. You know, we're going to go to the mythic level. I mean, the real test, see if I can still do well, because I've really learned the game. And you say, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll go to planet Earth, we'll take an incarnation there. This is master level achievement to survive the craziness, perhaps, on this planet.
Could be.
You know, what if?
I mean, to be honest, you can say we're in a virtual reality because it's all in our head, in our mind. So it's true. It depends on the perspective, how you see your life. When you see your life through, you know, furniture and walls and trees, or you see it through your mind, and through your feelings and to your ideas.
Yes, and I could spend quite a lot of time explaining how we're all in sort of a virtual reality bubble. We're tuning in through a connection through actually a pineal and various hypothalamus and various structures in the brain that enable the feed. In fact, David Icke talks about this. Most of his books now, his latest book called The Trap, explains in great detail how the imagery system that you've got, that you're experiencing right now, is generated within your mind by these electrical signals are operating, clicking various neurons that actually activate within you the perception you have of the virtual reality information feed that's coming into your head.
I think it's absolutely amazing that if you take a brain, put it on a table, and dissect it, it's just some cells and some blood and some. How this creates the world.
Well,
you see,
it's the opposite way around. You see, the way a materialist thinks is we've got a material thing called the brain, and that's generating consciousness somehow or other, which you don't understand. Actually, it's the other way around.
Exactly.
Consciousness generates the brain.
Exactly, and all the things. Yeah, it's fascinating, because if you turn it upside down, the other way around, you'll be blown away.
And a lot of great thinkers have said the same thing, including Buddha, of course. I mean, he's the very first one that really got to the bottom of all this. It's called the Lotus Sutra, and that's just there. And he would what's called emanate the Dharma. But he never explained what the Dharma is. But if he really got down to what he was saying was, we're in what he called emptiness or virtual reality. And that's where we are. In thousands and thousands of virtual realities, he spread the Lotus Sutra, if you like. So he was the first one. But, the idealists, in philosophical terms, in the 16th century, Berkeley was one guy who came up with what's called idealism. It's an idea. So it has a long history of very clever people putting together the pieces together and understanding that consciousness is primary and the material world, or what we think is material, is secondary. It's generated by consciousness, not the other way around.
Yeah, true. I think Matrix put it very well.
Yeah, and The Matrix is a great set of films to understand it. But you've got to understand that when you get to Zion, which they portray as the real world, is actually itself a virtual reality.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. But you have to show something for people to relate to something, to have like an anchor point. Otherwise, it would be like,
yes,
you wouldn't get it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And our intentions matter in this
Of
virtual
course.
reality because it's quantum probabilistic, and we can adjust the probabilities of things happening. So our intentions are important. And the more people put together the same intention with what's the group of what we call arcane power, which is the ability to focus the mind. So what they don't want a lot of us to do is to get together with high-powered meditation power to move the timelines into this higher timeline. But I'm afraid the game's over because we've done it. But they have all sorts of mechanisms to dumb us down and stop us from coming together to make this common intention for this higher timeline.
Yeah, like social media and all the
all that distraction. It's all distraction.
Yeah. It's supposed to connect people, but it put people apart.
Yeah, that's right. It's but we will get there. I think more and more people are waking up. That's the impression I'm getting, because it's really in your face now. If you think it's a normal world, that just doesn't play anymore, does it?
Yeah. Well, I enjoy talking to you because you're always optimistic about future events.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing because you don't see that too often these days, as you said. People are talking about other things and they are preoccupied.
Well, the problem is the alternative media is as much fear porn on the alternative media as in the mass media. Basically, the alternative media isn't doing us any favours either, because very few people are actually talking about what's, the big picture story.
But it was like, what do you expect from media? What do you want to see? They are interested in killings, wars, calamities, stuff like that.
Why don't they just talk about actually, I get the Yorkshire Post, everything, and I really like the Country File and seeing these people who've got sheep and what they're doing and what have you.
But people are not interested in, this guy just got married or had a baby boy or a girl, or they won the lottery, or people are interested in bad things. They're all depressed, and I don't watch the news. So.
No, I've switched the news off. I do get the paper though. I get the eye and I do the puzzles. But I do keep in touch with. Actually, I've got a book here where I take cuttings of anything that's half positive in the papers.
Half positive, it's still good.
Or even quite positive. Yeah. So this is what I call the mass media awakening, and there's quite a bit going on. You see, this one here is cancer warning over sweeteners in Diet Coke. So basically, what that's saying is that all these sweeteners, aspartame is the problem, was cancer causing, but they somehow got it through the before. But now they're saying hang on, no, this is actually a cancer-causing thing. And they're actually saying, you've got to be careful. You don't drink Diet Coke. All this diet nonsense is sweeteners are just part of the problem.
It's worse than sugar.
Then here we've got appearance prompts body double claim. So this is Putin's body double. So,
Yeah.
they're saying, hang on, there are body doubles out there.
Well, they are.
Maybe there are more body doubles. It's not just Putin. Maybe there's some other people out there. You never know. Then there's another one. Could a solar storm really knock out the world internet? So this is the great solar flash. It's a big issue, and NASA could have said, well, it's a real risk, So that's a bit of a wake up. Then excess deaths are still high, but not because of the COVID vaccine. But, they're saying there are excess deaths. Now, where do they come from? But it's nothing to do with COVID. Couldn't possibly be anything to do with the vaccine,
It was a different story last year, 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Sit down, I'll take
Yeah,
another
that's
sip.
right. I'm just going to... all protests are now possibly illegal. It's chilling. So that's someone pointing out, hang on, our human rights are being affected. I've got endless of these ones, which are kind of like spiking gold purchases by younger adults. Some people, maybe the younger people are thinking, hang on, there's something funny with this inflation, printing of money and nonsense interest rates and all this stuff. Maybe we should get a bit of gold. I would say get some gold because this bankruptcy issue, it means the old money printing scheme is a Ponzi scheme, basically.
Of course it is. It's obvious now. Yeah. But what about this thing? They want to wipe out all the cash and just
well, Kim talks about this a lot because this was their get out clause. So they've run out of money, so they can't get access to the money printing machine. So what we'll do is create a whole new class of money and move over to that. And that one we can control. You see, the deep state dudes will control the central bank digital currency. But in order to convince people to come over to the central bank digital currency, they had to destroy people's confidence in Bitcoin and the real cryptocurrencies. So they knocked it's incredibly volatile. I used to have a bit of Bitcoin. It goes up and down like a yo-yo. It wasn't really a suitable asset class for people because it's just too volatile because of the effect of people it's going up and down like yo-yo. But they said, oh no, the central bank digital currency won't be like that. It'll be really a stable,
it will be controlled, that's why.
Yeah, but it'll be a surveillance system. So they actually will know every single time you use that money will be recorded so they'll know what you're doing.
It's already happening in China, I heard.
Yeah, it's already happening. And what's more, in the event that you break their rules, do something that they don't like, they will restrict your access to their currency to the point at which they could actually stop and take your bank account, your central bank digital currency account from you. And then you're absolutely knackered. So that is not the way forward. And because it's not the way forward, Kim has said, no, that is not going to happen. And it was actually meant to happen 2 days ago. There's a lot of stuff on the papers about it was all going to happen. But basically, they've tried 300 or 400 times to get this registered. Because you need to understand, in order for it to manifest, it has to be recorded in a thing called the Hall of Records through someone called the archivist, which currently, because it's an alpha light system, requires Kim to sign off on it. And she says to the archivist, if they ever come forward again with these central bank digital currency plans, just don't accept them. Because in the old days, 300 times they've tried to register it, and the archivist has had to go to Kim and say, shall I register this? And she says no. And she's got so fed up with responding, she said to the archivist, just knock it back even before they even start. So basically, it's just not going to happen.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. They came up with a really brilliant plan. You'll love this one. It was a $1 trillion coin. Because under the Constitution, they can create coinage, the Congress. So they thought, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get hold of a $1 trillion coin and give that to repay our debts. Here you are, there's this coin. It's worth $1 trillion, you know. If you go down to the local shop and get a bottle of milk, I said, oh, have you got any change for $1 trillion? I mean, it's just complete, these guys are idiots. They're not only arrogant, they actually don't know, the politicians and so on, really much about how the actual system works, because they've never had to know how you run a business or operate a system or anything. They live in a sort of alternative reality system.
Yeah.
And they're really clueless. It's actually, at one level, it can be quite funny. But when you realise that you're dealing with people's livelihoods and people are really suffering out there, you know, we need a resolution of this quickly, because it's just getting worse and worse day by day for a lot of people. Fortunately, you know, I think we're very lucky in Yorkshire. We're going to be, you know, we're okay. But if you're in a place that's got major floods or volcanic activity or earthquakes, you know, or you sit in Ukraine or these other places, I mean, geez, it's just...
Well, I've seen a map of York in like 20 years' time or 30 years' time. It's half flooded.
Ah, yes. Do you remember the Hull has a famous tourist attraction called the Dive?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to the Dive? It's actually got a shark floating around the centre of it. But as you go around it, it has lots of little demos things. And I do remember when I went to see it, about 10 years ago, or whatever it was when it first opened, they had a dial where you could turn it, and every notch you turned was like a year. So it went through 100 years, and it showed you the flooding. So the first would be the Fens in Norfolk. That's already very close to the sea level, and that would go. And then you saw the Humber flooding through, and the Thames and so on. And then you saw the rest of the country slowly but surely being inundated with water. It's a bit of a horrifying exhibit, you know. That's not going to happen in the 5D virtual reality system. Now, it might happen in the 3D system. I don't know. I'm not really interested in that crazy world. But in the 5D virtual reality system, we're going to, that's not going to happen.
So it's the island going under.
We used to be connected into Europe. You could walk across what we now see as the North Sea. And off Cornwall, there's Lyonesse. I don't really know that story. But when the fishermen go out there with their tackle and what have you, occasionally they would pick up, you know, a saucepan or some parts. So there are villages underneath the water there that used to be inhabited, but it's got flooded out. Then, of course, there's the famous flood, which we talked about last time, which, the earth does change.
Of course.
And we've always managed to cope. So we'll cope next time. But my view is that, you know, with the restoration programme, we won't have that experience. But who's to say? I don't know.
We'll see. Well, should we?
Yeah, call it today.
Here?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Andrea. I always enjoy these conversations, and you're very welcome to come around. And maybe this time we meet up here again. That's worked quite well.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a beautiful place you've got here, and beautiful dog. And hope to see you again soon. Yeah. Okay, thank you guys for listening. See you next time. Bye.